Try and relax your face. 4 one way, 4 the other. Anyone got any clunking hips?
Yeah, not that way, no.
Cocks or sultans, it's just it can a number of things. It's basically to do with the psoas major muscle, where it goes over the pectineal tuberal eminence. And that's the biggest thing. It's all right, what happens one side? You ask them questions, not all the time, but ask them, what's it feel like on your left leg? What's it feel like on your right leg? Was it the same or was there a difference? Was there a clunking hip on one side? Yeah, do both legs. You're on both legs. 4 one way, 4 the other, swap over legs. Are you managing on one side to keep the shoulders down, or is it more problematic on one leg than the other leg? What about how straight the other leg is on the floor? Now, on that note, that is one of the practical difficulties you may come across when doing his version, is that they end up clashing. A little bit of coordination sometimes required, like your peripheral vision. Biggest one you'll get, people's head and shoulders are moving all over the show. The biggest one, realistically, is people have the legs too bent, and you've got to have adaptations to it. You've got to adapt it. And one adaptation, as I've already said, might be put a band or use a strap. Oh, wait, you'll make any notes you need to make, and then we'll do a slightly different one if you want. For me, one of the issues with keeping the pelvis still is you're working in your comfort zone. Yes, it should show control, but you're working within your comfort zone rather than push it. The analogy I use, I don't know if this works on, you've got a bolt and you've got a nut that's sort of like rusted and stuck on the bolt. It'll screw a little bit. You're trying to get the bolt off it. You ever had this? You screw it a little bit, so there's some movement there. Now, if you stay within the movement, you're never ever going to get it off, are you? You need to push the envelope a little bit to free it up. Does that make sense? That analogy works for me, but that's how I visualize it. You've got to go out your comfort zone. You've got to push the envelope, if only a little bit.
If the hip doesn't feel like it's stabilising with muscle, is it still safe to do it?
Yeah, assuming they haven't got a history. Again, this is where the PAR-Q and the thing comes into effect. That's why you don't do it on hip replacements, because they're more lax. Well, not that you wouldn't do it, you'd certainly alter it. You wouldn't be going across the midline. Why? Women's hip anatomy is different. We've done a video on this than men. Now, we've got a lady that, I kept on saying that for years. I don't know when you overheard it, didn't she? She thought what I was referring to is the fact that men have got penis in the testicles, or most men have. It's not. The hip anatomy is completely, mentioned about the pubic arch being different. The acetabulum is different. It's positioned different on men than it is for women. Sorry about this, ladies. Men have evolved for running. Our hip anatomy is such that the acetabulum is to the side. If for ladies, it's more, for women, it's more to the front and angled down. So some movers must get away from, probably more relevant in yoga, but get away from this. You should be in a fixed position. It should look like this. Well, no, because it depends on what body shape is. You have some clients that acetabulum isn't the same height. It's slightly in a different position, one leg than the other. So when your leg, especially for lady, when you're there, because of it's angled that way, the cup is angled that way, when your leg is there, it's far more likely the head of the acetabulum should just go pop and pop out the socket. Get a luxation, a dislocation or subluxation. Yeah? I can't remember what the question was now. I apologize. I've gone off on a tangent again.
No, I was thinking about how stable.
Right. Yeah, so unless they've got a history of, it's called subluxation, especially a partial dislocation, where it's partially come out. If you happen to know that, then you probably wouldn't want to be doing that. And people with hip replacements, or if you even thought that they might have a lax joint, then you'd be strengthening the muscles around the joint, which you always nag about, know your anatomy. So what muscles stabilize the pelvic joint, the hip joint? Glutes are the biggest one. Glute medius, glute maximus, glute minimus, piriformis, 2 obturators, 2 gemellus, quadratus femoris. You've got bigger ones. Rectus femoris. Everything which crosses the joint is going to help stabilize it. Some more than others. The glutes mainly. Certainly glute medius, glute minimus. Yeah? So you need to think, know your anatomy, and you'll know, you'll be able to answer the question, rather than have to ask another teacher or look at some Pilates book which claims this. Just look at your anatomy. What can help wedge that femur into the joint? And if you know your anatomy, look at your muscles, just think of it, because it's logic. Where the muscle pulls one way, which one is going to put that into the joint? And then you'll know the answer yourself. Some more relevant than others, that's all. Right, so let's do the other version then. So we'll just do one side. Lay yourself down on your back. Same position, one leg in the air, don't care what leg it is, doesn't really matter. But your hands on your pelvis this time, both hands on your pelvis. On that part there called the ASIS, anterior superior iliac spine, providing it's on the ilium, left and right ilium, hip bones. Right leg in the air. We'll keep the leg straight. Now, the aim of this now becomes keep the pelvis perfectly still. We do not want the pelvis to rock from side to side, one iota. You're now going to try and steer little grapefruit-sized circles your leg. It's more about the hip joint. So if, in fact, everyone watch this way, because this lady is a perfect example, you might get something like that. That's going to be massive on, I apologize, what's your name?
Kelly.
Kelly. That's going to be on Kelly's hip flexors, her lower back, far more than someone who's got the leg up there.
Yeah.
So we're not interested in that. Well, I'm not today. I'm interested, say, on hip mobility, hip dissociation. So you can bend that even more. I'll probably get possibly to do it with a strap. For someone like yourself, and realistically, I'll probably just get you to do knee stairs, to be honest with you. Yeah? So you do knee stairs. So just, oh, sorry, I apologize, I haven't done it. Just completely relax that leg, grab hold of the purple band. Ding, ding, ding. Put it underneath there. Completely relax the muscles of that leg completely. Okay, you're going to do, maybe put it in one hand if you can, the other hand on your pelvis, feeling for your pelvis. Right. So that leg wants to be completely relaxed as possible, but the knee wants to stay as a basic over the hip. Now you're all going to do the same, but your leg's straight. And all you're going to do is you're going to move it in small, start off with a golf-sized small circle, do a few clockwise, anti-clockwise, and just alternate. But you want the pelvis to be as stable as you possibly can. So you're only moving the leg as much as you can keep the pelvis stable. Does that make sense? So if your pelvis is moving, that's why you've got your hand on the pelvis for a bit of biofeedback. And we don't want the pelvis to move at all. That shows control. But how much movement have you actually got for keeping the pelvis? And you're going to compare sides, yeah? Well, not today, but that's what you would do realistically. Now compare sides. Which one, for the same size circle, which side did your pelvis move on? And that's your more problematic side. That's the side you need more work on. Does that make sense? Or have I lost anyone? Yeah? Now that's one way of doing it. For me, with that one, that would be more an assessment tool. Which one is tighter, or in general, how much mobility or lack of mobility have you got in your hips? For me, that doesn't do too much. Because you're not pushing the envelope, you're not going out your comfort zone. The next version I do is do exactly the same. This time, away you go. This time you're going to push the envelope a little bit, so bring it to the edge. You're still trying, this is a bit contradictory now, you're trying your best for your pelvis to be as still as you possibly can, but you want the circle to be a little bit bigger than you just did. So you might actually get some movement in the pelvis. Does that make sense? It sounds a bit contradictory. You're trying your best to keep your pelvis still, but you want to challenge that stillness. That stability is what you're going to challenge. And you're only going to challenge that by doing bigger circles. Now, you might have experienced one problem already or one thing already. Can you feel this in the front of your thighs? Yeah. Rectus femoris. And lower your leg down. That's another practical thing you'll come across. Again, it just, I'm not being sexist when I said it, but it does tend to a bit more in men than women when they have the leg. Usually for people that have got really tight hamstrings and calf and lower back when their legs are like that, they really feel it. Like I said, for Kelly, it's massive on her hip flexors, and rectus femoris is a hip flexor. If Kelly would have carried on doing them, trying to keep her leg as straight as you can. It's something to bear in mind with a class, and that's how you actually have to think in a class. For some people, it's not a problem, carry on. For other people, it might be, you're better with a band with your leg straight. For another person, you're better with your knee bent.
And I really struggle with trying to keep my hips still with my leg straight.
Yeah, another option which makes it a bit tamer is just to bend the other leg. That's another tamer one. So what I mean by that is put your leg in the air and bend this other one. Let's see how it bent. Because it's less challenging, because it's easier to keep that pelvis still. That's all. So if someone was really on a serious note, if someone really had a wobbly pelvis, I'd probably be bending that other leg.
I feel like when I'm in that position, it tilts my pelvis a little bit to allow less angle there, so that I can actually get my leg straight enough. Because when my leg, I literally can't get it close enough.
That's a mixture of hip flexors and sacroiliac. Yeah. That's better. You're more bang for your buck with your leg straight if you can do that without any other issues coming in your body. Does that make sense? It doesn't, does it? Okay, so I always like to go for what's going to give me more bang for my buck, because I'm a tight arse bastard and I pay for anything. You know, I want to do anything. I want to get the most benefit out of it. I don't want to just get a little bit of benefit because I'm tight. So as an exercise, as an example, the leg straight is going to get me, it's going to do me more good. Now, there comes a point where someone might be that chronically tight where they're like that, they're not going to get the benefit out of it. There's a fine line between you as an instructor thinking, how are they going to get the best benefit out of this movement? Okay, it will be, do that. Don't worry about that, do that. It depends on why you're giving the movement as well, but usually it's hip dissociation. That's the biggest one of this, it's hip dissociation, freeing up the hip joint. But you'll also strengthen it as well. It's one of those weird ones.
So it feels freer when I'm in, if I have my leg just bent like Kelly was doing, or if this leg is bent, I can get it closer. But when we were just doing it how it should be, I don't feel like I've got any movement because I can't move it.
When you say you should do, you mean his version?
Yeah.
Well, that one.
Oh, no, that one, yeah. The other adaptation that we were doing.
Okay.
It's a fine line between making something more accessible and having to work through the discomfort.
Yeah.
So some people's bodies, like with Kelly, it's just so massive on hip flexors, which is not really what the exercise is for. So is that a case where I can get the leg up there, like in your case, it's just hard work.
Yeah.
With Kelly's case, it's completely going against what the actual exercise is for. So I would say to you, suck it up and I'll do it.
Yeah. Or,
That's easier because this
Because the whole pose is tilts.
yeah, I can maybe do it because that my right hip is hinged, so I'm catching.
So the whole pelvis is
Yeah.
pelvis tilts a little bit.
Yeah.
Just that's the problem with it.
so, any questions on single leg circles, or one leg circles, whatever you call them? Obviously, you both legs, 6 you used to do, 6 one way, 6 the other. And swap over, 6 one way, 6 the other. On that, on a serious note, what will you get? People will lie there. Oh, I didn't know you said do the other leg.
All the other directions.
And the other thing you'll get is people go 90 miles an hour and some people go 1 mile an hour. Like 10 minutes later, you wait for them to finish. That's just one of the practical things you come across, but there you go. Oh, rolling back like a bull now. Oh, my favourite.